All-knowing Father, full of mercy and grace, we welcome your presence here and invite your Spirit to move among us in agreement with your word, leading these here to watch, stand fast in faith, and be strong. Let all they do be done in love. May whatever they do be done heartily as to the Lord and not to men. May all business be conducted without complaining and disputing, and all things be done decently and in order. May each one here be devoted to one another in love and honor one another above themselves. May all decisions made bring life, unity, prosperity, love, and hope to this city. Bless this council, bless this city, and bless those who live here. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.
Thank you, Linda. Now we'll officially call this meeting to order. Madam Clerk, could you please take the roll?
Mayor Miller.
Here.
Alderperson Clem will be marked absent for the time being. Monroe.
Here.
Simmons is absent. Parker.
Here.
Stacy.
Here.
Thank you. Shadle.
Here.
Sanders.
Here.
And Sellers.
Here.
Could I please get a motion to approve Alderman Clem on remote attendance?
So moved.
Second. Oh.
Okay. Motion made by Alderman Parker, seconded by Alderman Sellers. Madam Clerk, can we do that? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Yeah, it has to be roll call.
Has to be roll, even with that?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Could you take the roll?
Monroe.
Here. Or, aye.
Parker.
Aye.
Stacy.
Aye.
Shadle.
Aye.
Sanders.
Aye.
And Sellers.
Aye.
Motion passes 6-0.
And could you please take the roll for Alderman Clem?
Alderperson Clem, are you present? Yes. Yes? Okay, thank you, sir.
Okay, and if we could please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance led by Alderman Parker. Item number 1 is approval of the agenda minus executive session. Is there a motion to approve?
So, second.
We have a motion made by Alderman Shadle, seconded by Alderman Sellers. Madam Clerk, could you please take the roll?
Parker.
Aye.
Stacy.
Aye.
Shadle.
Aye.
Sanders.
Aye.
Sellers.
Aye.
Clem.
Aye.
And Monroe.
Aye.
Motion passes 7-0.
Item number 2 is approval of the minutes from the regular meeting on July 15th, 2024. Is such a motion?
So move.
Second.
We have a motion made by Alderman Shadle, seconded by Alderman Parker. Could you please take the roll?
Parker.
Aye.
Stacy.
Aye.
Shadle.
Aye.
Sanders.
Aye.
Sellers.
Aye.
Clem.
Aye.
And Monroe.
Aye.
The motion passes 7-0.
And next is public comments. However, there are none on agenda items. We'll move on to item number 4, which is the consent agenda. The consent agenda is considered to be routine in nature and acted as one motion unless there's a member of the council who would like to have something removed for further discussion. Seeing none, the consent agenda consists of approving to receive and place on file the minutes from the Fire and Police Commissioners dated July 2nd and the 11th of 2024. Also is the Greater Freeport Partnerships monthly report for July 2024, IHDA letter to council regarding financing of Lincoln Towers dated July 22nd, 2024, as well as the municipal compliance report for police pension and fire pension for fiscal year 2023, and the approval of the finance bills payable in the total of $2,218,369.64, and payroll for pay period ending July 13th at $627,962.76, and payroll for pay period ending July 27th, 2024 in the total of $631,860.25, and also the cash and investment reports and finance reports for June 2024. Is there a motion to approve?
So move.
Second.
Motion made by Alderman Shadle, seconded by Alderman Sellers. Madam Clerk, could you please take the roll?
Parker.
Aye.
Stacy.
Aye.
Shadle.
Aye.
Sanders.
Aye.
Sellers.
Aye.
Clem.
Aye.
And Monroe.
Aye.
Motion passes 7-0.
Item number 5 is the recognition of service awards, Police Department.
So the month of August, we have 2 service awards. Both gentlemen were hired on the same date back in 1999. Yeah. So Lieutenant Aaron Dykema, Sergeant Kurt Schnorr, both of them will have 25-year anniversaries this month. Unfortunately, Sergeant Schnorr wasn't able to attend tonight. He had a previous engagement, but I just wrote something up for him. For his 25 years of service, he's been assigned to the Patrol Division. Sergeant Schnorr has served as a field training officer and member of the emergency response team. Sergeant Schnorr was also a corporal on patrol and was promoted to sergeant in 2016. Sergeant Schnorr has served in that capacity since his promotion. Sergeant Schnorr has been proven to be a leader the police department can depend on. Because of his extensive experience on patrol, he's someone that I have confidence in, knowing his ship will handle their calls for service the right way. Next is Lieutenant Aaron Dykema. Lieutenant Dykema has served the police department in various capacities, beginning as a field training officer and as an inspector with the Illinois State Police State Line Area Narcotics Team. Lieutenant Dykema was also a member of our emergency response team and a corporal on patrol. Lieutenant Dykema was promoted to sergeant, where he oversaw a patrol ship, and then eventually as a lieutenant in 2017. Lieutenant Dykema was the administrative lieutenant, operations lieutenant, and the detective bureau lieutenant, where he's currently assigned overseeing the detective bureau functions. Lieutenant Dykema is also a graduate of the prestigious Northwestern School of Police Staff and Command. I'd like to sincerely thank you and Sergeant Schnorr for your dedication and service to the city of Shreveport.
Thank you. Fire Chief?
Yes, thank you, Your Honor. The fire department celebrates 2 notable anniversaries the month of August. First one would be for Tim Randecker for his 15 years of service. However, he's enjoying his honeymoon right now, so he could not be with us this evening. The next, I'd like to invite District Chief Brett Hartwig up here. So it's my pleasure to introduce District Chief Hartwig and celebrate and recognize his 25 years of service with the department. His hire date was August 9th of 1999, and his promotions occurred December 16th of 2012, went to captain 11/14 of 2015, and then that was transitioned to district chief position. So some of the department-related certificates he holds, he's currently an EMTB, hazmat operations technicians and incident command level, rope operations, trench operations. He's also a firefighter 2 and 3, fire service instructor 1 and 2, fire officer 1 and 2, and fire and arson investigator. So some of his professional development degrees include associate's degree in fire science from Madison Aerial Technical College. He has a bachelor's degree in fire prevention technology from Western Illinois University. And he also holds a master's degree in organizational leadership from the University of Wisconsin. So he's also, with our department, a member of the Honor Guard. He's a veteran of the U.S. Army from 1991 to 1995, member of the Wisconsin National Guard 1995 to 99, and he also has 2 daughters, Courtney and Alyssa. So it's my pleasure to hand to you the Certificate of Achievement for 25 years of service. Thank you. Okay, you're done.
Thank you. And next is Street Department.
Good evening, Pat. Thank you. Tonight, we are honored to recognize Pat Ingram for his 20 years of dedicated service to the city of Freeport. Pat began his career in the street department and later as in the full-time in the forestry. where he worked tirelessly for many years, demonstrating a commitment to safety and efficiency. 3 years ago, he advanced to the position of forestry foreman, and just last year he was promoted to street superintendent. Throughout his tenure, Pat has exemplified servant leadership, always prioritizing the well-being of his team and community. As street superintendent, he has led significant efforts in city repaving work and has been instrumental in driving the department's efficiency and safety standards to new heights. Pat, your unwavering dedication and exemplary service have made a profound impact on your city, and we are grateful for your many contributions. Congratulations on reaching this remarkable milestone, and thank you for your continued commitment to making Freeport a better place for all.
Thank you. Madam Clerk, could you please note that at 6:10, Alderman Simmons attended? And move on to item number 6, which is the second reading of Ordinance 2024-36. Could you please read this?
Ordinance amending Part 16, Chapter 1610, 1620, 1630, and 1640, Fire Prevention Code updates and amendments.
Thank you. Chief Miller?
Thank you, Your Honor. Once again, tonight, we're here seeking approval to adopt the 2018 Fire Prevention Code and NFP Life Safety, 101 Life Safety Code. Currently, we have in adoption the 2012, and the Fire Marshal has conducted quite a bit of work on this in conjunction with community development, and they are also trying to go up to 2018 standards. So by doing this, this will streamline a lot of the codified ordinances or chapters within the ordinance to streamline and reduce redundancy and bring us up to the current code that the state fire marshal has adopted. So therefore, if we need to refer something on to the state fire marshal, we are on the same level of adopted codes. So this has been a lot of work gone into this from the fire marshal, and once again, we're seeking final approval for that adoption.
Any further discussion concerning this ordinance? Madam Clerk, could you please take the roll?
Parker?
Aye.
Stacy?
Aye.
Shadle?
Aye.
Sanders?
Aye.
Sellers?
Aye.
Clem?
Aye.
Monroe?
Aye.
And Simmons.
Aye.
The ordinance passes 8-0.
And item number 7 is the second reading of Ordinance 2024-37. Could you please read this?
Ordinance amending building code to 2018 ICC additions.
Thank you. Director Duckman.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Similar to what our Chief Miller had just said, this Community and Economic Development Department is looking to upgrade its edition of the ICC codes from the 2012 edition to the 2018 edition. And as was presented in the first reading, staff is recommending approval of this ordinance to upgrade our building code from the 2012 edition to the 2018 edition.
Any further discussion on this ordinance? Madam Clerk, please take the roll.
Parker?
Aye.
Stacy?
Aye.
Shadle?
Aye.
Sanders?
Aye.
Sellers?
Aye.
Clem?
Aye.
Monroe?
Aye.
And Simmons.
Aye.
And that ordinance passes 8-0. Excuse me.
Item number 8 is the first reading of Ordinance 2024-38. Could you please read this?
Ordinance amending Chapter 1262 off-street parking and loading.
Thank you. Director Duckman.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So staff presented this in our July Committee of the Whole meeting, and what this ordinance is proposing is the making it mandatory for somebody building a driveway on private property that they would need a permit for the driveway, whether or not it is going to cost more than $10,000. So currently, if you are building a driveway or very similar to any other type of building permit, if you're not spending $10,000, you do not need a building permit. What this ordinance is seeking to do is to state that anytime you're having a contractor build a driveway, whether it's $5,000, $2,000, you're going to need a permit with the Community and Economic Development Department. initiative behind this is we've been working with Public Works Department, trying to rectify some issues we've had with contractors not getting permits, some issues we've had with how they've been tying into right-of-way, and we're looking to have some interdepartmental work to try to ensure that standards are met with driveways. So that being said, staff is recommending that council move this forward for a second reading.
Is there a motion to move it forward?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion made by Alderman Shadle, seconded by Alderman Sellers. Discussion. Alderman Sanders, you had your hand up first.
Yeah, how you doing, Mayor? How you doing? Question on the approaches to new driveways and things of this nature. Does that create an infraction up on the public city sidewalks? Or is this a private property that is not even adjacent to the public sidewalk?
There's two. So this ordinance is talking about what's on the private property side, but when you're building a permit in the city of Freeport, you also have to go to the Public Works Department and talk to them about how you're going to do that approach into the street. So there's two parts. If you're going to, let's say, replace your whole driveway from where you would turn off from the street and you would go into your garage or off-street parking, they call that. Essentially, you would say, hey, we're going to go to the Public Works Department. We're going to get a permit there to make sure the sidewalk is rebuilt to their standard. We're going to make sure that the approach, that apron where you tie into the street, that's done properly. And then what this ordinance is saying is, if you're on the private property side, you're going to have to get a permit as well.
Okay. All right. Okay.
Alderman Stacy?
Yes. What, it might not take much to get to 10,000 with the uprise in supplies. Would that dollar figure ever be considered moving up?
So I think I think maybe I should explain it better. What this ordinance is saying is no matter how much it costs, so if the prices go down, and let's say, which probably won't happen, but let's say the prices go down and it costs $5,000 to fix your driveway, you're still going to need to get a permit. So before this ordinance was being proposed by staff, what we were getting a lot of is people would say, I did not get a permit because my driveway was $9,900. And we didn't have a rule, we didn't have an ordinance that protected us to say, hey, you need to get a permit. So then when people would complain and say, they left a bunch of gravel, they spread it on my yard, this might be too close to the property line. We couldn't do anything as a staff because our rules say it's not $10,000, so it doesn't require a permit. So in addition to concerns we had from Public Works, we also had some neighbors that were upset that people were getting driveways without permits. So what this is saying is whether it's $20,000, $30,000, $5,000, you need a permit to build a driveway in the city of Freeport on your private property.
Okay.
Alderman Monroe?
Thank you, Mayor. Does this apply to people without a tie-in to the street?
This would, if somebody for whatever reason wanted to just fix their private property side, yes, this would include them.
Alderman Parker?
I had mine put in several years ago. It was 6,000. I didn't need a permit, and they did an excellent job. But what is this going to prevent?
Well, I mean, there's more than one driveway contractor in the city of Freeport, right? So you hired a good contractor, things went well, there was no problems, but not everybody does. Some people are, they're just doing them themselves, or they're hiring a contractor that may not do such a good job. And let's say somebody hired a contractor that did not do a good job for $6,000, and then the neighbor says, hey, this looks terrible. Then the staff would say, well, the person didn't need a permit because it wasn't $10,000, and then there's really no enforcement ability for staff to try to rectify it.
Go ahead.
What is the cost of the permit then?
It's 1% of the cost. So if we're talking about $10,000, that would be $100. or I'm sorry, yeah,
Yeah.
1%, yep.
Yeah, you're right.
Alderman Monroe?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Are we going to be doing the same inspections that on city work that's done on private work as well?
Are you saying that if the city of Freeport's performing work, like in a right-of-way, like a large $500,000 project, is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, it could be any amount of project.
It's gonna be different because the standards on a street, where they're gonna follow an IDOT standard, right? So there's gonna be a different standard as opposed to a driveway is gonna have, I would say it's gonna be less stringent on a residential driveway versus an actual highway road and city street road inspection.
Follow up. So that tie-in is going to meet the standards that you're dictating to private entities.
Right. So you're talking about the apron, or where your street, where your driveway ties into the city street. Mm-hmm. Okay. That permit is going to come from our Public Works Department. Okay. There's 2 permits we're talking about. And then the permit that we're talking about here in this ordinance is basically saying that portion that goes from your fence line to your garage. So, like you're coming in off the street, you got to cross the sidewalk.
All right.
You're turning in, you're going to cross the sidewalk. That's going to be a public works permit. And then most of your driveway typically is going to be on your private property side. And what this ordinance is saying is you have to get a permit for that to make sure the work is quality, it meets standard. And that gives the city some enforcement in case there's work that isn't done properly on the private property side.
Follow up. So is it giving the private entity the same type of recourse against the city if they don't do the work properly? Say maybe they use substandard concrete, they haven't tied it in properly. Those types of things?
Yes, I would say yes. I think anybody who would have a complaint against the quality of the city's work themselves, a complaint against any work that a city subcontracts, we always investigate it. My department doesn't, but I know our Public Works Department would.
Let me,
Actually, Alderman Sellers is next.
Yes, I'd like to know, is this also would help, like if it is your driveway coming up, it also help you know where your property line is and the neighbors, so that no one, if you get a permit, you have to know where you can go, because you can go so many, you have to go so many inches in or feet in, or what is it, on your line, so that you're not touching your neighbors, right?
It's going to be 2 feet off. We're going to require 2 feet off the property line on, obviously in the situations where you have a shared driveway, we're not going to do that. But this isn't going to require a survey, which would actually cost a property owner anywhere from $800 to $1,500 typically. So we're not requiring a survey to be done.
No, that's not what I'm asking. I'm
Sure.
just saying that, I know you were saying that it protects, and you guys know that the contractor is doing what he's doing right. I know that I know one of the sides of my house where my neighbors are, I think that if it was done correctly, I wouldn't have this little issue that I have because it's not done correctly. So that's what I was saying, that
Sure.
when the person comes out to do it, he knows where he can do the driveway. not
What would
that you gotta get a survey.
sorry. What would happen is we would say on a new driveway, on a new driveway, we would say you have to be 2 feet off the property line.
okay.
So that would essentially help the issue you're talking about.
Okay.
Alderman Stacy?
How much is a permit
1%.
The,
of the cost?
Yeah, so if the estimate comes in at $5,000, that's $50.
Okay.
Alderman Sanders?
yeah, trying to put my thoughts back after miscuing 3 or 4 times. My question would be is, from what I'm understanding, I may be wrong, how involved is the city with a private owner and his property when it comes to his driveway? How much involved is the city, and where does it start and where does it end?
well, what this ordinance is saying is we're trying to be more involved to say that no matter what, if you're building a driveway, this ordinance is proposing it saying that if you build a driveway in this city, you got to get a permit and you have to pay 1%, which we just talked about. It's a
Right.
$5,000 driveway. It's $50, $10,000, $100 permit fee. So this permit is asking for more regulation on driveways. That's what this permit is asking for. Currently, if you build a driveway and you say, well, it's $9,500, my staff cannot enforce any regulation on it. There's no permit required.
So if a complaint develops in the process of building this driveway, and the owner feels that job was not done very well, how involved does the city come in to make the corrections of anything that is not,
Sure.
up to grade or up to par?
Well, we have an inspection, which is going to require that we go out there and we check any forms. We're going to check make sure there's a sub base, the correct amount of subcompacted gravel or road base, and we're going to check to make sure it meets a standard, just like any other, any other permit does. We have a code that requires 7 inches of total, or I think it's 4 inches of stone or 7 inches of stone and then 3 inches of hot mix asphalt. So we're going to require that it meets those standards, but we're not going to come back there and say, well, if a homeowner's not happy with how it looks, but if it meets the standard, it meets the standard. That's
So there's a guideline for all the
Yes,
specifications that are
yes.
being considered or introduced within this permit?
Yes.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Alderman Stacy?
Where does this 1% go?
It goes back into our general fund. Yeah.
Okay, if there's no further discussion, Alderman Monroe?
I'd like to just make a comment. This is one of those ordinances that really gives more authority to the city and really doesn't provide any protection to the citizens of the city. So it's essentially a tax on any work that's being done that you're already paying tax on the other materials, the work, the service, all of that type of stuff. So, with the rise in taxes, the difficulties of our citizens, and, the quality of work the city in Helm has done, I'll give you Woodside Drive as an instance, nobody held them accountable. Nobody said we're going to have this much base, this much pavement. Matter of fact, the city allowed the contractor to decrease the quality of the job. And, it had to be redone. And those are issues that really, if it's not adding to the overall improvements of the city, it's essentially just another way to take money out of the pockets of the hardworking citizens of the city of Freeport. And I will tell you, more than half of this city cannot afford any more taxes. And quite honestly, we really need to have, I know my alderman across the aisle will say it's just a cup of coffee, but he's been saying a cup of coffee to the point of we've got a monthly membership at Starbucks and we can't afford it. And it's time to draw the line.
Alderman Shadle?
As far as what value would come, I highly doubt that you would have any idea what these building codes call for a base, a sub-base, rebar, wire mesh, or depth of concrete. Rattle on about a tax, but there's a service being made that if you're paying for a driveway, you're getting what you should get if in fact it's inspected. The inspector's gonna come out as the progress is coming. Before they can pour that concrete, the inspector's gotta be on site, check the depth that they're gonna pour it, check the compacted gravel base, and check that there's rebar and wire mesh laid into the excavation. So it's not that there is not a value there. The average homeowner, I'm sure, doesn't have any idea what these building codes call for, and that's the job of the inspector, and that's pretty good $50 insurance policy.
I believe,
Debbie?
yeah, Madam Clerk, did you want to say something?
I just thought of something, Director Duckman. We do have similarities, don't we, where I don't know exactly what it is, but like things can cost under $10,000 and still need a permit, like a furnace or HVAC. Aren't there similar examples?
There are, and I was you are correct, and I wasn't, I was just trying not to get into the weeds of every single permit we have.
right.
No, that's
Okay.
all right. We're getting there, so that's good. The thing I'm trying to say is there's not a one-size-fits-all permit when it comes to my department, but you are correct. There are situations where you come in for a permit, an electrical permit, for example, you get a new service, you're going to have, 200 amp service, you're going to have an inspection. And that's not $10,000 typically. So there are situations where you have to pay for a permit, even if it's not $10,000.
Darren, did you want to add to that?
I just wanted to speak specifically of an issue that we just recently had in the city with this type of a permit. When we don't issue a permit, we don't have control of the contractor itself within the city limits. And so we have a brand new street that we installed, and now we have gouges in it. We have concrete running down it because they didn't do washouts correctly. They drove over the curbs to do the work, new curbs that were installed over new sidewalks. So without this permit, we don't really have a way to give them code violations for all of the things that they did. And so there's the value in it. This traps who's doing the work at that specific location. And I agree, it's a very difficult situation to be in, but we also can't have fly-by-night contractors running around Freeport creating more damage for them to profit and the city to lose, because we're all paying for that together. And so I think this ordinance that Wayne has brought forward changes that script to where you need a permit if you're working on your property to do it, just like a building permit or an electrical permit or any other permit that you would do to construct on your side. And then we have the side on the right-of-way where we ensure that the right-of-way is done correctly or it gets redone. And so I just think I see the value to this after we had an issue a couple weeks ago with a new street that has 2-inch gouges in it that had we not been checking on it or been in a visible location, we wouldn't have known who did it.
Right.
Alderman Sanders?
Yeah, in addition to that, contractors, like you say, subpar contractors or not experienced contractors, just fly-by-night contractors, the homeowners have to rely on the city's inspections, am I correct?
If this is passed, yes, and
Yeah,
then on the
okay.
right-of-way side, we require inspection for the right-of-way
Yes.
side.
And so do we have a department program or something like that that go out and check for these types of things? Because I don't know what the average homeowner building on their property and things of that nature. Do we have a code of ethics with these homeowners who wants to extend their property or rebuild their property, upgrade their property and things of that nature?
Well, sure, that's what my department does. And currently what would happen is I would see somebody building a driveway and I would say, you need to come in for a permit. And then the person says, I don't need a permit. It's $9,500. Here's the invoice. And then I say, yep, can't enforce it. They can go ahead and gouge up his street. And then everybody pays for that, essentially. It's because I don't have the enforcement authority on currently under anything under $10,000.
So,
And I don't like to tell that to people. I would like to be able to tell them, we're going to enforce action. We're going to require them to get a permit. We're going to require them to do the right thing. I would like to be able to do that for our
this is
citizens.
at the time, I'm sorry. Yeah. This is during the time of a permit being issued, and they receive their guidelines and whatever it requires of them to complete the job. And they know that what can happen if nothing is done correctly. If it's not done correctly, they would have to come back and revisit the construction again.
Yes, I am proposing that somebody that if you're going to that if you want to install a driveway, no matter how much it costs, you need a permit so that my team can inspect it, approve it, and that way the city can rest assured it was installed per our guidelines.
Okay.
Alderman Monroe?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So without this permit, there would be we would have no way if contractors are doing the work according to the rules that we've set forth. Is that what you're saying?
I am saying that right now, if one of my inspectors were to see somebody installing a driveway, this happens, people they start building on their house, their property, et cetera. It happens. They don't have a permit. And right now, if I saw somebody building a driveway and I gave them a violation notice and they came in and said, here's the invoice from this contractor, it's only $9,000, then I would say, well, I don't have the authority to require a permit, so therefore I don't have authority to inspect.
Wow.
So follow up. So your department handles permits and licensing of contractors within the city of Freeport. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Follow up as well. So each member who comes in and is doing that type of work has to take a test, has to pass a test, has to provide, it says here, an affidavit for workers' comp, liability insurance, state licenses, EPA lead certificates and such, and a credit card for renewal. So they're already paying a fee to be licensed to do work in the city of Freeport. Is that correct?
Yes, correct. So you do have to to do work in the city of Freeport, you have to be a licensed contractor, yes.
Okay.
Well, if there's no further discussion, we'll move this forward to the next regular scheduled meeting. Move on to item number 9, which is the first reading of ordinance 2024-39. Could you please read this?
Ordinance approving hangar lease K9 with Tango 34 LLC.
Manager Boyer.
Thank you, Your Honor. Tango 34 LLC is interested in leasing hangar K9 at Albertus Airport. Operator Angie Jansen relayed that hangar K9 has housed the same aircraft, which has been in the family for some time. The former leasee has passed away, and the leasee's name will now be under Tango 34 LLC. This agreement will generate $165 per month in revenue to the city, and staff recommends the approval of this lease agreement.
Is there a motion to move this forward?
So moved.
Second.
A motion made by Alderman Parker, seconded by Alderman Sellers. Discussion? Alderman Sanders?
Yeah. I kept looking at this over the week, and for whatever reason, I didn't understand the lease agreement cost for monthly fees. And could you explain that more in details? Because I'm curious about how that is structured and why it is set up in that form, and why as an individual for a hangar is paying only $165 a month.
Manager Boyer?
Just to back up, in 2021, City Council approved the list of hangar lease payments. So they went through a list of all the different hangars out at the airport and approved their their rental prices. So staff is currently reviewing our current rates, and we're going to bring that before council in the future here, very probably this fall. But in the meantime, this is the rate that we have set by ordinance.
Alderman Sellers?
So really, we're only asking for this hangar is just the name to be changed because his loved one passed away. So they're just changing the titles, really, right?
That's correct.
Okay, then we'll move on. Alderman Stacy?
Yes. How long have this family occupied this hangar?
I can't tell you specifically, but quite a while.
Okay. So, I guess the grandson probably have inherited whatever is in that hangar, and now it's in his name?
Alderman Stacy, I don't know precisely who owns the aircraft. It sounds like it might be this company that he's established, but I can't tell you for sure.
But he is whose name it's going in.
The LLC, yes.
And how long is this lease for?
Well, it's month by month currently. However, staff plans to, at the end of the year, review the lease documents and then bring forward a new lease form that will be acceptable to the attorneys and also to the airport operator. So this is the existing lease form. It's month to month, and it goes on for as long as they want to continue to lease the hangar up until the point where we change that.
Are all lease month to month?
Yes, all the leases are month to month except for the large commercial operations.
So rightfully, then he's only committing to the month of August?
He will occupy that hangar until he gives us notification that he no longer wants to. However, at the end of this year, we will be bringing forward that new lease format, and at that time, we'll continue to do month to month according to the operator. That's the most equitable way to do that on these various pleasure craft out there.
Okay.
Alderman Sanders?
Yeah, that hangar, is qualified to be a business? Is that a business type of hangar?
It is not, as far as I understand, is basically to house their pleasure craft out there. He just wants to list it under his LLC.
Okay.
I don't believe he's doing any commercial activity out there.
Okay. All right.
All right, then we'll move this forward to the next regularly scheduled meeting. Item number 10 is the first reading of ordinance 2024-440. Could you please read this?
Ordinance authorizing the sale, recycling, donation, and disposal of certain personal property owned by the city. This item's for the police department van.
Chief Schenberger?
Thank you. The Freeport Police Department has utilized F-26, which is a tan 2000 Chevrolet van, for missions conducted by the emergency response team from 2000 to 2023. The police department now has a new van for ERT missions. F-26 is currently not being used and has been parked at the city yards. Staff has been approached by a member of the multi-jurisdictional special response team that serves Stevenson County, Carroll County, and Joe Davis County. The SRT is currently in need of a replacement van to utilize for missions. This van will also be utilized by the Carroll County Emergency Management Agency as a tow vehicle for their command trailer when needed. F-26 is in need of body work and some mechanical repairs. Representatives from the SRT plan on having these repairs conducted at the Whiteside Area Career Center in Sterling. So we're just requesting to donate F-26 to the Carroll County Sheriff's Department.
Is there a motion to move this forward? Alderman Parker?
Second.
Seconded by Alderman Shadle. Is there discussion?
Okay.
Then we'll move that on to the next regularly scheduled meeting. Item number 11 is the first reading of ordinance 2024-41. Could you please read this?
Ordinance approving variance application at 537 West Addison Street, submitted by Terry Wernz, to examine the variance application to seek relief from 1250.05 F1 regarding a front yard of less than 25 feet.
Thank you. Director Duckman.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So on April 16th of this year, staff received a permit for building of a new home at 537 West Addison. And so after reviewing the permit, it was noted that they wanted to build into their front yard with a 14-foot, basically a 15-foot setback. And our current rules are that it has to be a 25-foot setback. And so based on their proposed plan, we needed to have a staff notified the property owner that they would have to get a variation for this. And it was brought to, on July 11th, this was brought to our Zoning Board of Appeals, and it was recommended by approval of a vote of 5-0. And then again, on July 11th, it went to our Planning Commission, and it was recommended for approval with a vote of 7-0. Want to note here that I was planning to present this at our last regularly scheduled council meeting in July. However, that was postponed due to weather. So all that being said, and also wanting to note here that the property owner is looking to move forward to build their residence. Staff is recommending approval of this variation application, but we're also recommending or requesting a suspension of the rules.
Thank you. Is there a motion to move this forward? Motion made by Alderman Parker, seconded by Alderman Sellers.
Need a suspension of the rules.
Okay. So we have a motion for suspending the rules. Is there a second on that? And again, Alderman Parker and Alderman Sellers. So we'll put on the floor first for the suspension. So that must pass by a 2/3 majority, right? Okay.
Do we have discussion?
After we have the suspension, because that, right, that takes precedence, the suspension? There will be discussion. We'll just take the suspension vote first.
But what if the discussion determines how I would vote? Can I just ask a question?
That's what he's saying. It's non-debatable. So let's just take the vote on whether we're going to have the suspension, and then when that's done, then any questions? So again, it's 2/3 majority, non-debatable. Madam Clerk, would you please take the roll on the suspension part only?
Parker?
Aye.
Stacy?
No.
Shadle?
Aye.
Sanders?
No.
Sellers?
Aye.
Clem?
Aye.
Monroe?
Aye.
Simmons?
Aye.
Motion passes 6-2.
Okay, so now discussion concerning this ordinance. Alderman Stacy.
I just wanted a clear understanding of what you're asking. So there must be an ordinance or a law that says 25 feet back. They only want to go 15. And so is it my understanding that the city is willing to allow them to only go back 15 and that's okay?
That is exactly what we're doing here. And to go a little further into it, I mean, I have an illustration up there. I can go up and show a little bit more if need be, but the short answer to here, I'll stand up and show it. You got the little, all right, brand new. Excellent. Pointer right there. All right, so you're looking at this drawing here, and sidewalk, and this is, they're calling this a green area, which is known as a parkway, but here's Addison Street right here. Now, this is the property line right next to your sidewalk, and what's being proposed is a 15 feet off of the off of this front yard here. Now, I want to say a couple things. Our ordinance says you have to be 25 feet back in a residential neighborhood, but I do want to add a couple things here. Interestingly enough, this neighborhood, as I did the research, was actually platted before the Civil War. So this is a very old neighborhood, as many of you know. Many of these homes are actually built 15 feet off. This is most of this house is going to be built on an existing structure. So what's kind of interesting here is if you can't see too well, but this is part of the existing foundation. There was a older structure on here that was in bad shape that was demolished. And actually what they're proposing is they're actually going to go further back than what was already there. But since this is going to be brand new construction on top of an existing foundation, we stated you have to go through the proper channels and request a variation. But I just wanted to state that I provided some pictures in the staff report. Most of your houses in this neighborhood are at 15 feet.
Further discussion?
I just don't understand why we have rules and regulations and we don't follow them. And then Sally do it, so Joe want to do it. And it's okay for some and not for others.
Manager Boyer?
Alderperson Stacy, I just wanted to comment, in older historic neighborhoods, they're built on a line on older standards. And so we retain the flexibility to provide a variance so that we don't disturb the kind of the nature of the neighborhood, right? The aesthetic of the neighborhood. So if we were to push this house back 25 feet instead of 15, it would be like it would be an odd looking situation as you look down the street. What you would have is something out of line with the rest of it. So the reason we have this permit is so that in most cases, if you have a new neighborhood going in, you have standards that everybody abides to. But when you're dealing with older historic neighborhoods, you really have to keep in line with what is already there. And that's the purpose of the variation process, is to be able to allow someone to build a new structure, however, maintaining the existing setbacks so that it doesn't look odd compared to the rest of the neighborhood.
Okay, I understand that it's an older neighborhood and that most of the houses are at the 15-point mark. So maybe there's a little clause that needs to be added to change the rules in situations where
That's what a variance is. That's what they're asking for.
it says, but does the ordinance already say variance?
No, it has to be custom built, like maybe the next neighborhood is, go ahead.
So a little bit about variances. So a variance is a set zoning thing. So that it's a creature that allows for anyone to apply for a deviation from the set rules, because your codes are going to be written to set the rules, right? And they're going to apply broadly, but there's always going to be some weird, unique circumstance, right? Where it's not a perfect square peg in a square hole. You're going to have something that's a little bit off. Like in this particular case, the original house, really old, built to 15-foot setback, right? Then it gets demolished, and now you have to build the new house, but the new code says 25 feet setback. Well, that would, as Manager Boyer says, well, that would look a little strange now to have one house set 25 feet back when all the rest of the houses are at 15. So there is a zoning mechanism called the variance there, and it applies to pretty much most bulk zoning regulations, whether it's a setback or a lot size requirement or a building height requirement, some sort of measurement that you can apply for that variance to that general zoning rule because you have a unique situation.
Okay, so since there is a variance, why do we even need this? Question. Why do we even need it?
State statute requires that a variance be approved by ordinance. So it has to go through the ZBA process, and then it has to come to planning, and then as well come to city council for approval of the ordinance.
Okay.
Alderman Parker, did you have your hand up earlier?
Well, I was just going to say, it's excellent. We got some people that want to build a new house in our community, because there's so many wanting to move out of here. So I think we need to open the door and help them as much as we can. Thank you.
Thank you. Alderman Simmons?
Yeah, so is there plan to build on the foundation that's already there?
Correct, most of it. So see the picture up there? The dark line is going to be built on existing foundation, and the only part that's not going to be built on the existing foundation is this was also part of the existing foundation. They're not going to build on that. So most of it's going to be built on the existing foundation.
And this is Addison Street? Is that the back or front?
So here, you know where Addison, yes, this is Addison. See, this here is Addison Street, right here. And then here's the porch. They're going to build a porch here. You would enter in here. So this part that's going to be entering off of, this is where Addison Street is, and you'd be entering here.
And you're entering by the arrow.
Correct. This is your front door here. Yeah, there's also an alley here. So this would be your alley, and this would be Addison Street. And then that's hence what we're talking about. A front setback is your front door, front yard, front door. And then typically, our new ordinance says 25 feet. That what they're proposing is 15 feet.
So I have a question. So is this extending the house from closer to the street from what it already is?
No, it's not. And that's what I was talking about before, was it's being built on the existing foundation.
I mean, the additional that won't be on the foundation.
Are you talking this piece? So the original foundation actually went out to here, and they're actually built, and the original foundation limits would be here and here, and they're actually coming back from the original foundation to here. So they're actually a little bit further back from the existing foundation where it was.
So
Is there only one way in and out
No,
on this street?
I believe it dead ends over here, and you can turn in from here. I forget what street it dead ends over here.
Behind the 660 Stevenson building.
You know where I'm talking? Yeah. But there's two ways. You can access it through an alley, or you could access Addison to the east.
Green Street.
What's that?
Green Street.
Yes. Yes.
Okay, if there's no further discussion, Madam Clerk, would you please take the roll?
Parker?
Aye.
Stacy?
Aye.
Shadle? Sanders?
Aye.
Sellers? Oh, I'm sorry, she's absent for the moment. Clem?
Aye.
Monroe?
Aye.
And Simmons.
Aye.
Motion passes 7-0.
Item number 12 is the first reading of Ordinance 2024-42. Could you please read this?
Ordinance approving variance application at 3020 West Greenfield Drive, submitted by Susan Keister to examine the variance application to seek relief from 1270.03E1 to allow a fence to exceed 6 feet in height in any side or rear yard.
Thank you. Director Duckman.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So in this situation, staff received a permit for a privacy fence at 3020 West Greenfield, and we received this application on March 13th. In that application, it was stated that the contractor was going to build a fence to 6 feet in height, and upon inspection, it was discovered that a portion of the fence was built to 8 feet in height, and for that reason, we're requesting or the property owner requested a variation so that they could be in compliance. So all the rules were followed, except that at the point of installation, a portion of the fence was actually built 2 feet higher than code. So when the inspector discovered that, the property owner came to us and requested a variation to allow for that portion of fence to be 8 feet in height. So with that being said, on July 11th, it went to the Zoning Board of Appeals, and it was recommended for approval with a vote of 5-0. On July 11th, it was brought to the Planning Commission, and it was approved by a vote of 6 yeas, 1 nay, and 0 abstentions. And with that being the case, staff is recommending approval of this variation. Also, there's also a request to suspend the rules because this was also brought before it was intended to be brought to the July council meeting, which was suspended or which was postponed due to weather. So I would say that staff is requesting a suspension of the rules as well.
Is there a motion to move this forward?
So move.
Second.
We have a motion made by Alderman Sellers, seconded by Alderman Monroe. Alderman Stacy?
Where is the 8-foot part?
I'm going to go back up here. Yep. Thanks. No, you're helping me out.
Oh, that's the 6?
Yes. You're looking at the 6-foot portion. Thanks. Oh, you're helping me out. Yep. And this is right here, you're looking at a 6-foot portion. I'm going to scroll down and see if I can find now you have the 8-foot portion. And so what would have been on the actual permit application would have been this 6 foot, And then when we come on site to inspect, we see the 8-foot section.
What was the purpose?
Well, you know, what was discussed was that, and it doesn't show it here very well, but there was a grade break where they were trying to match, and that's hard to explain as well, but when you have a grade break, they were trying to match instead of having it be horizontal. You know, they wanted to maintain a horizontal look on the fence. So it made sense why they did it. I'm kind of scrolling through here. I want to show the property as well to give you an idea, you know, how small of a section we are actually looking at where there's 8 feet, you know, being put in, okay? So it's not like this whole area is fenced in over here. It's really just this area here. The property owner's been very good to work with. And, you know, I wanted to mention this as well. At the Zoning Board of Appeals, there was no complaints from any adjoining neighbors as well. So,
Well, we have this rule of variation. So how can you say yes to one and no to the other?
well, I think that this is a situation where the property owner did the right thing, got a permit, contractor came out, built the fence, called the inspector, and the inspector rightfully so. I mean, I showed it was pretty clear there was a 8-foot fence installed, and we gave the option to say, you know, we said you have the option to apply for a variation. It'll go before a zoning board to see if it's appropriate, and it'll eventually go to council for vote. So we gave, staff wanted to work with the property owner and provide them their options, and the property owner's been very pleasant to work with. And I just will add that in this situation, one of the things that's why staff is recommending approval is we did have a public hearing on it, you know, and nobody said, hey, that I don't like the fence, it's too high, it's a nuisance.
Let's take the vote.
Okay.
I'm
Well, that's
sorry.
not quite the
Did I
right
miss
order.
something?
Yeah, yeah. I didn't make my comment.
We only have, yeah, oh, okay, so,
Yeah,
All right.
it just moved too fast.
go ahead.
What I wanted to say was, you said there was no complaints in the neighborhood about the extended 2 feet. Was this an oversight? Was it deliberate? Was it something that could have been taken care of at the time that they was installing that 2 feet, extra 2 feet? Or they just ignored the community development department that handles all of those things? Did they just did it without regards?
Well, they did get a permit, and on the permit, they said it would be 6 feet. And then our inspector goes out in any project and looked at it. And I mean, the inspector did measure it, but I mean, it's obvious even from the pictures that it wasn't.
What's the consequences when something like that happens?
Well, there's two options here. The first is the variation, which would say, look, this happened, and I would like to have an 8-foot high fence, and therefore, and council looks at it. When you have a variation, it's a public hearing process. So you're giving the public an opportunity to also say, this is out of line, this is out of bounds, this shouldn't be, I disapprove of it, bring down.
So you only need but one complaint, is what you're saying?
No, that's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is we have a hearing.
Oh.
So it's, you know, we talk about transparency, we talk about the ability for the public to be heard.
Okay.
So this was a notice that this person would have had a sign in their yard. They did have a sign in their yard. The neighbors were notified by mail. And then there was also a notice in the paper that said, I have a fence, it was installed at 8 feet, and there's going to be a hearing. Do you want to come? You have your opportunity to discuss your opinion on the matter. And then staff has the hearing. It's put before a appointed board. And what I'm saying is if enough testimony goes a certain direction, it adds to staff's recommendation. It's not an end all be all, but I'm making the point that when none of the neighbors complained, it's evidence in the right, it helps to form staff's recommendation. That's not a end all be all though.
Aaron?
So with regards to Alderman Stacy's question, just because someone applies for a variance, I don't want to give the impression that you guys have to vote for it. right, for the variance. You guys still control whether or not to vote for it, but as a part of your consideration in making your determination, and the same thing went for the ZBA as far as what they're supposed to consider is with variances, again, right, I talked about the fact that there's always going to be a situation that's, you know, not a square peg fits perfectly in a square hole, right? There's always going to be a property that has a situation that might warrant deviating from the code, right? Giving these people some latitude on following the strict letter of the rule. So one of the things that you guys are supposed to look at is if you were to follow the strict rule and enforce the strict rule, would that create a hardship for the particular property owner? One of the other things too is you're going to factor in, one thing to consider is another thing is this person in a unique circumstance that causes them to maybe, you know, be justified in asking for a deviation from the rule. So for example, in this one, and I wasn't at the ZBA meeting, but I'm sure one of the things that the property owner might argue is if I don't get the variance, then the alternative is I gotta rip the fence down and have them rebuild it, and that's going to cause me a hardship. It wasn't and they might argue that wasn't my fault. My contractor just went and did it, you know. And then so those could be potential things that you guys consider in that situation. The other thing being then is the fact that, well, the contractor might say, well, the only reason why I put it up higher is because of the grade the grade change. If I didn't do that, then the fence might look even stranger, you know. So these are all things for you to consider. But all I'm gonna say is I didn't want you to think that just because someone applies for a variance and there's a creature called a variance that you guys have to approve it. You guys want to take all of these things and decide, does this property warrant being granted a variance? Okay.
I understand. Thank you.
Madam Clerk?
And Director Duckman, I would assume that, like, if the fence was too high and was blocking traffic, if there were some hazard, if there was some reason not to do it, then the ZBA would recommend not. Same with the last house on Addison. If the traffic coming out of that alley couldn't see to make a turn, that all of those types of things, safety type things, are vetted in addition to what Attorney Zito is saying.
I appreciate that. Clerk Anderson, yes, and you are correct that we have these hearings to look at testimony, to look at evidence, to ask these questions, and questions like this are asked. So yes.
And this property is very, very rural on a dead end, that there would be no traffic even there.
You can see, you know, you can't because you're fake, but if you look back on it,
Go to the
lights are on,
first
but
image.
yeah, you can see it's off it's not even facing anywhere near the road. If you look back there, I could kind of see right here. This is the only section of fence that we're talking about. And there's their access, their road is here, so they're actually going down here with no fence. And then you turn here, and then you see the it's really kind of tucked away.
Alderman Monroe?
If we scroll back to the first image, it'll show that down the lane, essentially you can't even see the 6-foot fence down that lane, and the lane goes downhill. So it's a downhill grade from the street, as you can see there, all the way down. So in the foliage that's along the back edge there, the homeowner that lives in the house directly on the street can't even see the fence. So it only is, it's out of sight, it's out of mind on that little stretch. I know the homeowner was really upset and really concerned about it. And the one thing, and that was the reason I asked the question earlier about are, contractors put through training? And so do they understand our ordinances? And this is an instance where the contractor didn't. And so it's important to to look at it from that standpoint. But, once again, it doesn't, really cause any harm to anybody, and the neighbors that live there have no complaints either.
Alderman Shadle?
I have a little experience in the 6-foot height of the fence, having put one up myself. And I was handed a very explicit 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper that laid out exactly what I could do and exactly what I could not do. And I think any contractor that builds fences in the city of Freeport is aware of that. I know for a fact that that homeowner would have been handed that piece of paper. And to have this happen in this order, it just seems to me that the old adage of it's gonna be easier to ask for forgiveness than permission. And here we are, we built the fence, and I can't say as I'm in favor of this. There's a way that this needs to happen. They were made aware of it. I know they were made aware of it because I was. My fence steps down. As the straight line would go, I would be 7 feet at the end by pulling a string. And my fence steps down about 3 to 6 inches every 16 feet.
I'll take a shortcut.
So that I stay within the limitations that I was given. Thank you.
Yeah, just a little, very little.
Okay, so there's a motion on the floor to move it forward, but there's also been a request for suspension of the rules if the council so desires.
I'll make the motion to suspend the rules.
Alderman Parker, is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion made by Alderman Parker, seconded by Alderman Rowe for suspension of the rules, which again is non-debatable and must pass by a 2/3 majority. Madam Clerk, could you please take the roll on the suspension only?
Parker,
Aye.
Stacy,
Aye.
Shadle,
No.
Sanders,
No.
Sellers,
Aye.
Clem,
Aye.
Monroe,
Aye.
and Simmons.
No.
Oh, so we have 5-3, which is probably not 3/4 vote, so it fails. And we'll go to second reading at the next meeting. Yep. Oh, 2/3. I'm sorry, I said 3/4.
It'll go to the next regularly
2/3.
scheduled meeting.
I have a question. Because one night I had my hand up, we were in discussion, and someone said, take the vote.
It was called the question.
And just like that, everything was cut off. So why did we have all this other discussion just now?
So I think, well, I don't recall the exact time, but I think someone made a motion to call the question. And so then there was a vote on calling the question. It was seconded, and then there was a vote on call the question. That passed, and so because the call the question motion passed, then that triggers immediately after that vote passed, going to a final vote on the agenda item.
So when I said tonight, take the vote, I should have said call what?
To question.
Right.
Call the
I make a
question.
motion to call the question.
Okay.
Right, yeah.
Let me write that one down.
Okay, so move on to item number 13, which is the first reading of ordinance 2024-43. Could you please read this?
Ordinance approving special use permit application at 1726 Southwest Avenue, submitted by Phil McDermott to examine the special use of a B21 limited service business zoned property to restaurants with outdoor serving areas per section 1252.01 B10.
Thank you, Director Duckman.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. 312 Beef, Phil McDermott, he's submitted an application to our department requesting a special use permit to allow his business the ability to have an outdoor serving area for his restaurant. And this application was heard on July 11th, and the Zoning Board of Appeals recommended approval by a vote of 5-0. And then again, the Planning Commission heard this on July 11th, and they recommended approval with a vote of 7-0. And in line with the Zoning Board of Appeals and Planning Commission, staff is recommending approval of this ordinance, and also staff is recommending a suspension of the rules. This was on our July City Council meeting that was delayed due to weather. So for those reasons, and for the fact that this is a business that would like to add outdoor seating in its restaurant, an outdoor serving area, staff is recommending approval of this ordinance as well as a suspension of the rules.
So is there a motion to move this ordinance forward?
So move.
We have a motion made by Alderman Parker, seconded by Alderman Sellers. Discussion? Alderman Parker,
Make a motion to suspend the rules now.
is there a second?
Second.
We have a motion made by Alderman Parker, seconded by Alderman Shadle for suspension of the rules. Again, must pass by a 2/3 majority and non-debatable. Madam Clerk, could you please take the roll on the suspension only?
Parker,
Aye.
Stacy,
Aye.
Shadle,
Aye.
Sanders,
No.
Sellers,
Aye.
Clem,
Aye.
Monroe.
Aye.
The vote is 2-4-6-1. The motion to suspend the rules passes.
So now before you, council, is the passage of this ordinance allowing for this special use permit. Any further discussion? Alderman Monroe?
Can we bring a map up of this area? Do we have an image?
So here's a map of the area. Now I want to make a note here. This is the parcel here for 312B, if we're aware of. Now, and this is West Avenue. I want to state something here. This map here was submitted to us, and eventually this is going to go for an outdoor serving liquor license. So, that being said, by the time that 312 Beef gets to the Liquor Commission, they are going to have to specify an area that they can serve alcohol in. So, why I'm stating this is that for a special use application, it's a blanket outdoor serving area. They don't have to specify where they're going to serve for this particular ordinance. However, I used a picture for illustrative purposes at both the Zoning Board of Appeals meeting as well as our Planning Commission, and then again today at the council meeting. This is illustrative, and it's more specific than it needs to be for this particular ordinance. But their plans are to eventually have a serving area back here.
Alderman Monroe?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Mr. Duckman, with that in mind, that driveway is very narrow on the north side of the building. There's definitely some safety concerns with traffic through that parking lot. What kind of devices are going to be put into place to keep people safe as people drive through there? So that it's similar. I mean, are we going to put any rules on it for that as far as like concrete barriers or whatever?
There's no plans for any concrete barriers. So essentially, if you were to say have an outdoor serving area, which is what this is your general zoning application. So they're asking for the right to have an outdoor serving area. That's what is being contemplated. That's what's being asked. That's what's being proposed here. So you have an outdoor serving area. Your question is, you're saying, okay, you're going to come in here and then you're going to park, correct? Or you're going to come in here, maybe enter here to go to your parking.
It's a one way.
Right. I got you. But the point I want to say though is that there is no requirements to say if you're going to have an outdoor serving area. There's no requirement contemplated. We're not evaluating that on this actual application. We're saying, as I stated earlier, when staff looked at the special use permit, does it make sense to have an outdoor serving area for this restaurant? And we looked at many factors. They're listed in this application. I can go through more of them. But one thing I would say why it makes sense to have an outdoor serving area here is you're in a commercial area. You're not butting up to any residential. It's going to add business. I think my opinion, as well as the ZBA and Planning Commission, is this is going to help attract business. And safety concerns for outdoor serving at this restaurant, I personally don't see them, and it's not necessarily contemplated in this special use permit.
Alderman Sanders?
Yeah, that was one of the things that I wanted to find out. That was the designated area, and the fact that you said it was proposed, though, right?
Yes. Yeah. So all the purposes, I really want to be clear here. When they're applying for outdoor serving, they're applying for the ability to serve outdoors, not in a specified area.
Oh, okay. I
Now,
got you.
and the reason that this map has this is the property owner, their next step is they're going to want to serve alcohol, and they're going to go to the liquor commission. And when they get to the liquor commission, this is the map. I've been actually going to go to the liquor commission and ask for this space right here. But right now, what they're just asking for is, does it make sense for a restaurant in a commercial corridor to add to their business to allow for outdoor serving, entertainment, etc.?
Yeah, I see nothing wrong with that, but my whole thing is would there be a safety problem in that area? Have we did the inspections, if it's proposed to us? I hear what you're saying. It could be anywhere, and we're going to inspect it for any kind of safety hazards and anything like that.
They will have a liquor commission meeting where that could be discussed, a public meeting where it could be, you can attend and certainly see if there's any safety issues proposed with their final location that they're proposing.
All right.
Alderman Stacy?
I would feel better if I knew. Could you take your little red dot coming in again?
Right, you were saying where they're coming in?
Coming in. And where there's cars.
Right here?
Uh-huh. Now you see where there's parking spaces, but it's no cars.
Right here?
Nope, to your left, yeah, that area. Are they willing to give that up? Because I have been in there several times. Someone's gonna get hit.
I think that's a concern to bring. It is a concern to bring to the liquor commission, certainly, if they're where their specified area is going to be when it gets to that point. But I would say that, and on this particular ordinance, I would say that it certainly makes sense because we're talking about land use. We're talking about how could somebody use their property. That's what this is talking about. And I stand by my recommendation, as well as the Zoning Board of Appeals and Planning Commission, that this is a restaurant in a corridor that's industrial, or it's a business corridor, and I think it's gonna benefit the community ultimately.
God bless you.
And certainly in the next step, it would make sense if there's concerns for people to go to the liquor commission meeting. But I think at this point, when we're just talking about, does it make sense for a restaurant to serve alcohol outside or have a serving area outside? I do think that particular use does make sense. And that I think makes
without knowing if there's gonna be part blocked off to allow the swing around, how can we make a decision
Well, what
without knowing that?
what I'm saying is there's another hearing that's going to happen for that. He is planning on going to a liquor commission meeting where he's going to discuss the outdoor serving area, and that'll be a public meeting that can be attended, and these concerns can be discussed by yourself and any member of the public.
Can I make a motion that we wait on that before a decision is made?
The Liquor Commission has to have a special use before they can approve the liquor portion of it. So it's kind of out of order.
Yeah, it is.
Well, I could also say that we always bring our special use permits to say, can they do this use generally? Does it make sense generally for this location to have the use? And this is the typical process we always follow. So if you look at it, this is the first step. And if this is approved and it goes to Liquor Commission, it's denied, then they're not going to have an outdoor liquor serving area. So they have to get this first step to get to that more specific step.
Okay.
Alderman Sellers, I think you were next.
Yes, I just would like to know, is this any different from what the Wagner House has, or what they have on Stevenson Street right there, or Morton Saints? Is that any difference than, because, you're driving down Stevenson Street and they're right there. The Wagner House, they have their really nice outdoor sitting, and that's half of their parking lot. And then Morton Saints is right there on the street. So it's no difference, is it?
In terms of land use, it's not different. You have a restaurant, and can they use their land for outdoor entertainment, outdoor serving, outdoor entertainment, right? That's the question we're talking about. From that perspective, I would say, well, no, it's not different. You're talking about, does it make sense from land use and zoning to allow outdoor serving? And I would say, no, those are similar situations. Is this part of town the same as downtown Freeport? No, they're different. You know what I mean? And there's it's a different situation. However, from the zoning perspective, you're asking the same thing. Does it make sense for this property to have outdoor serving area? That is what is being.
I think Alderman Sellers that would be a parklet permit. It's just it's a parklet because you're using city street versus your own parking lot. Okay. Alderman Monroe.
No, I think the question you're dodging, Director Duckman, is, does it make sense? The land use could make sense, but the positioning of it, where now you're putting people walking back and forth, they've got to go to the restroom, people are driving through the parking lot, it's nighttime, it's the sun setting. There's all these things that come into play, and the whole reason why we have certain things in place, like you've got to build 25 feet off the property line, is to allow for visual reference of, is there traffic coming, is there, you don't want to block anybody's view while they're driving down the road. And one of the big concerns here, especially when you're looking to move forward and now have alcohol out there as well, this location, the parking lot, I've been into it several times, isn't the best. It's not the best laid out, and I think this really puts people at risk of getting hit. And does he have a right to do this? Yes. Does he have a right to put it there? I think it's the same thing we can say about where you put your house and property next to the road. We have to have some sense of safety as we do this, and in my opinion, if we allow them to do this and put it in that location, you will within a year have somebody get hit. It's very simple.
Well, I do want to say, and I appreciate your point, and I do appreciate your point there, but I will say I'm not dodging the question. I'm trying to clarify the point of this ordinance. The ordinance is talking about land use, not a specific location. And so that's why I'm not dodging the question. When I'm trying to be clear and state that the decision's not being made today where they're going to put it. The decision being made today is, should this restaurant be allowed to have an outdoor serving area? So when you look at it, to break it down more, I talk about here, what you're deciding is restaurants with outdoor serving areas require a special use permit. So if you look at our rules, right away, this just says just to be able to have an outdoor serving area, you got to get a special use permit. And that's what's gone through our ZBA and our Planning Commission. And if you go further, right in our ordinance, I have a set of standards. In every special use permit we have, there's standards for granting a special use permit. So that's what's being evaluated by myself, by staff, Zoning Board of Appeals, Planning Commission. So I could certainly read through them if you'd like, but these are the standards that I've reviewed and given my opinion on in terms of whether this makes sense from a land use perspective. Same thing. There's a set of laws known as the LaSalle-Sinclair factors. You also use these to look at special use permits. I reviewed those, and that is how I come to my decision as a staff recommendation whether or not the land use makes sense. And that guides every single special use permit in the city of Freeport follows these guidelines. So that's what I want to be clear on is that's what you're deciding. Does a restaurant with outdoor serving area requires a special use permit? Staff looks at it from these rules, from this perspective, presents it to your zoning board, presents it to your planning commission, and ultimately presents it to you.
Alderman Sellers?
Yeah, I'm just thinking that I know that we're concerned about people getting hit in the way they come in, but I'm pretty sure that their insurance company would, make sure that they're following the rules, don't you think? I'm just asking, is it certain, because of your drinking and, and where it's presented, where it's going to be placed at?
Ultimately, I want to be clear again, where it's placed is not being decided.
Right, it's just having it out there.
Right.
Yeah.
We're just saying that does it make sense for this property to be allowed to have an outdoor serving area in some specific area? Now, if this is approved, this property owner or the business owner would then go to a liquor commission and say, I'd like to put it here. And then that's where they're going to look at the more specifics of insurance, where it's located, et cetera.
Alderman Stacy?
Attorney Zito had his hand up.
Did you want some?
I was just going to ask Director Dunkman, for the liquor license, the approval of the liquor license has to come back before the city council as a special use permit as well, correct? No?
No.
No, okay.
But there is a hearing. It's a public meeting.
Go ahead, Madam Clerk.
So when this goes to Liquor Commission, and many of them have, think of like Joe's Fest, or when Logan's had some outdoor special events. So once you guys approve that it's okay to have liquor outside, that owner could have the option, like to, and I don't have the red pointer, but he could put like 4 tables outside the door, and daily he could have, outdoor dining in nice weather. He may want to have a band at the back of his lot. Each of those layouts, each format goes before the Liquor Commission, and barriers are determined, safety factors are determined. Mayor, do you have any additional input here?
No, you're right.
And then each of those layouts is approved one time. And then we trust that owner that every summer, if he wants to put out his 4 tables, he's able to do that, and that layout is approved once. If he wants every other year to have a band at the back of his lot, the Liquor Commission would approve that once. They would look at the egress from the one-way street on the north side. Maybe that'll be blocked. Steve Cox is the attorney that sits in on the Liquor Commission. Those types of safety things are considered for each layout.
So really, we're kind of getting off in the weeds with location because it has absolutely nothing to do with this.
And that's
use.
not what we're doing here. Yeah.
So, Alderman Stacy?
So when is the meeting with the liquor?
The second Tuesday of every month is a Liquor Commission meeting. Sorry, I said that wrong. The second Thursday of
Thursday, I knew it was.
Second Thursday, and we have not received an application for this yet. We're awaiting this approval.
So the soonest it would be next month because it's too late for August.
So it's probably the second Thursday of September?
That would be the soonest, if he puts an application in. This right now is just for him to be able to serve outdoors, puts tables out, whatever he's going to do. So with that, if there's no further discussion, Madam Clerk, would you please take the roll?
Parker?
Aye.
Stacy?
Thank you.
Aye.
Shadle?
Aye.
Sanders?
Aye.
Sellers?
Aye.
Clem?
Aye.
Monroe?
Abstain.
Simmons?
Aye.
The motion passes 7-0 with 1 abstention.
Item number 14 is the first reading of Ordinance 2024-44. Could you please read this?
Ordinance authorizing the sale and disposal of certain personal property owned by the city. For this one, it's equipment in the IT department.
Eric?
Yeah, just as a little background, IT department just needs to dispose of miscellaneous technology that's either no longer needed or not usable any longer. So Exhibit A in the memo lists the items to be declared surplus, and then they'll be either recycled or otherwise disposed of. The vast majority of them will be taken to a recycling center. The remaining items that can't be recycled will be disposed of. That'd be things that had like CRTs. Those one, and then or things like recycling center. Hard drives will be removed from the devices prior to there's no commitment from the city for financial reasons, or financial commitment, and then we feel that it falls under responsible and efficient government. So I had any questions.
Actually, I'll need a motion to move this forward first.
So moved.
Second.
A motion made by Alderman Shadle, seconded by Alderman Sellers. Alderman Sanders.
Sir, this, I considered it might be said that this must be obsolete items, technology.
Generally, most of it is either devices that are end of life. We have a couple laptops that were Windows 7,
Okay.
which has been end of life for quite a while.
What was your planning on how the disposal was going to be made?
They're an electronics recycler.
Recycling?
On laptops or computers, we pull the hard drive.
Okay, so
There's no city data remaining on the machine, and then we.
so how is it destroyed? How do you destroy these hard drives and any other
Currently, we
data
have
information?
A large collection of them that eventually will be taken to the police range and shot.
And done what?
They'll use them for target practice at the range.
That's the weirdest thing I ever heard. But
It's a much easier to do than drilling holes through them.
Yeah, that's-
our other one
yeah,
where
yeah,
we or Kurt sitting there with a drill.
I see
for
what you're
hours
saying.
Drilling holes through it versus
Yeah.
putting a bullet through it.
So what is this surplus is not good for what I want to say, public auctioning.
The cost involved to manage that sort of a thing from the city is more than we would get for them. They're all old devices. That
Okay.
we're really gonna want.
Okay.
Okay, if there's no further discussion, we'll move this on to the next regularly scheduled meeting. Thank you, Eric.
Thank you.
Item number 15 is the adoption of Resolution 2024-74. Could you please read this?
Resolution approving payment of invoice from GeoStar for HVAC emergency repairs at police station.
Thank you. Manager Boyer.
Thank you, Your Honor. The city of Freeport had a storm May 22nd. I'm sure you all remember. It created a multi-phase power surge at the police station, and it damaged the electrical systems, power outage for the building, and it included the HVAC units. This forced the 911 center to go onto generator power, and emergency actions were put into place. ComEd arrived for an emergency storm call and said that they were having line voltage issues in the area, but they did not think it extended to this location. The city called in an electrician after hours, and it was determined the HVAC exterior units were in fault. The temps at the time were near 80 degrees outside. The city contracted HVAC company GeoStar. They responded the next morning for repairs, determined the HVAC compressors burn out, along with many other parts of the exterior AC units. A number of components were unrepairable and needed to be replaced. The HVAC company determined the phase power irregularity to the HVAC shortened the compressor, creating multiple components to fail, which is common with older equipment. GeoStar gave the city engineer a verbal quote of $40,000 to repair the unit with 7-day turnaround. The Freon system is no longer environmentally safe, so it would need to be changed out as well. The work was completed and the unit was operational by Friday, 31st. City of Freeport paid $39,721 and 73 cents to GeoStar Mechanical for the emergency repair, and staff recommendation to move or to approve the GeoStar Mechanical invoice for May.
Is there a motion to adopt?
Second.
So moved.
We have a motion made by Alderman Parker, seconded by Alderman Shadle. Discussion? Alderman Sellers?
Yes, I just want to know, I guess you needed the turnaround so fast that you had to go with GeoStar. Okay.
That is correct. They handle our HVAC systems. They're under contract, and this is obviously something we'll be seeking insurance reimbursement for.
Okay, if there's no further discussion, Madam Clerk, please take the roll.
Parker?
Aye.
Stacy?
Aye.
Shadle?
Aye.
Sanders?
Aye.
Sellers? Clem?
Aye.
Monroe?
Aye.
And Simmons.
Aye.
The resolution is adopted 8-0.
Item number 16 is the adoption of Resolution 2024-75. Could you please read this?
Resolution to adopt a Title VI compliance plan for the city of Freeport.
Thank you, Director Duckman.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So the city of Freeport receives federal funding, 5311 grant, as well as the Downstate Operating Assistance Program, which is through IDOT, State of Illinois, and this is for our Pretzel City area transit system that we operate. And part of that requires us every 3 years to update what was known as our Title VI program. So when we apply for funding through the Illinois Department of Transportation, they want to make sure we have a current, what's known as a Title VI program. And so to give some of the highlights there, it monitors our ability for our ADA, making sure we're in compliance with ADA, also has certain stipulations and regulations regarding discrimination, anti-discrimination regulations. And so IDOT basically told us we had to update it. And what is presented to you currently is our updated compliance plan, our Title VI plan. It has been reviewed by IDOT and found to be in compliance. And with that being said, staff is recommending approval of this
Is there a
resolution.
motion to adopt?
So moved.
We have a motion made by Alderman Monroe, seconded by Alderman Sellers. Discussion. Seeing none, Madam Clerk, would you please take the roll?
Parker?
Aye.
Stacy?
Aye.
Shadle?
Aye.
Sanders? Sellers?
Aye.
Clem?
Aye.
Monroe?
Aye.
And Simmons.
Aye.
The resolution is adopted 8-0.
Item number 17 is the adoption of Resolution 2024-77. Could you please read this?
Resolution approving landscape plan with Freeport, Illinois Solar LLC for solar development on 18th Avenue.
Thank you. Director Duckman.
Yes. So City of Freeport on August 17th, 2023, we had a town hall meeting to discuss the building permit application for a large-scale solar energy system. And as part of that town hall meeting, my department came up with a conditional approval letter. And in that conditional approval letter, which has been provided to you in your packet, condition 4 had stated that a landscape plan that would be approved by council would be required in order for them to move forward with their overall building permit. And so the developer has been working with staff on a landscape plan. The landscape plan has been reviewed by staff, and it is now presented to you ultimately for approval as part of their building permit.
Is there a motion to adopt?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion made by Alderman Parker, seconded by Alderman Shadle. Discussion. Seeing none, we'll take the roll.
Parker?
Aye.
Stacy?
Aye.
Shadle?
Aye.
Sanders?
Aye.
Sellers?
Aye.
Clem?
No.
Monroe, are you prepared to vote? And your vote is yes? Thank you. Simmons?
Yes.
The resolution is adopted 7-1.
Item number 18 is the adoption of Resolution 2024-78. Could you please read this?
Resolution approving McGuire Woods proposal.
Thank you. Manager Boyer.
This is, again, the McGuire Woods Consulting proposal. The cost of the proposal is approximately $72,000 a year. The purpose of it is to find additional funds through state funding mechanisms and federal funding mechanisms to bring home to the city of Freeport. This was last discussed at the Committee of the Whole and then moved forward to the City Council meeting tonight for approval.
Is there a motion to adopt?
So move.
So moved.
We have a motion made by Alderman Sellers, seconded by Alderman Shadle. Discussion. Alderman Simmons.
I thought the decision at the committee of the whole, it was not voted to move to the next meeting. I thought we voted and it failed, or it was a motion that prevented it from coming back to this meeting.
Yeah.
Madam Clerk?
Not that I recall. I don't have minutes or notes in front of me. Are you thinking of?
Oh, you're pulling.
Alderman Monroe.
Yeah, I
Thank you,
don't have
Madam Mayor.
minutes from the committee of the whole.
Can we take a 5-minute recess while she goes and gets her notes and minutes?
I don't know if that'll, is that,
A second?
so Alderman Monroe, was that a motion?
She seconded the motion.
We have a motion made by Alderman Monroe, seconded by Alderman Stacy for a 5-minute recess or approximate, so the clerk can go find that answer. Madam Clerk, please take the roll.
Who was the second on that? I'm sorry.
Stacy?
Parker?
No.
Stacy?
Yes.
Shadle?
No.
Sanders?
No.
Sellers?
No.
Clem?
Yes.
Monroe?
Yes.
And Simmons.
Yes, aye.
We're tied at 4-4, Mayor.
Sure, go check the record.
It was, because she had to pass it. I think she had to pass it, didn't she?
I understand. Better to be,
Uh-oh.
better to be okay with it, than not to be okay with it.
I thought he pulled it. I thought he pulled it off the agenda.
Can't hear. Try it again. Do it again.
I thought it was pulled off the agenda. You're fine. I thought it was just pulled. As a matter of fact. Okay, July.
That was the solid just past north of town.
Okay. It was pulled off. That was pulled totally off. It sure was. Yeah.
All right, since Madam Clerk is back, I'll entertain a motion to reconvene.
So move.
Is there a second?
Second.
We have a motion made by Alderman Shadle, seconded by Alderman Stacy to reconvene. Madam Clerk, would you please take the roll on reconvening?
Parker?
Yes. Aye.
Stacy?
Aye.
Shadle?
Aye.
Sanders?
Aye.
Sellers? Clem?
Aye.
Monroe? Oh, I'm sorry. I've also got to document that, my apologies, and Simmons.
Aye.
The motion passes 7-1.
Madam Clerk, would you please read your findings?
So Deputy Clerk Gordon has already typed the minutes. These are in draft format. I haven't read it all over. Manager Boyer explained we brought this item back to committee for discussion. At this point, the appropriations process is over for the 2025 budget season. If it is council's pleasure, we can start the process over for the 2026 budget season with new proposals. Alderperson Parker moved and Alderperson Shadle seconded to move forward with McGuire Woods. In answer to Alderperson Clem's request for clarification on how this will come back through council, Manager Boyer responded this will come back as a resolution. Motion carried by roll call vote. Ayes, Clem, Parker, Shadle, Sellers, and Mayor Miller 5. Nays, Monroe, Simmons, and Stacy.
So does that answer your question?
I have a question.
I could.
Alderman Stacy?
I thought there was a meeting where City Manager Boyer requested that it be removed.
It was on the 7:15 agenda that the meeting was cut short by the storm.
So we have a motion on the floor to move this forward. I'm sorry, to approve. I said that wrong. So discussion on this resolution. Seeing no discussion, Madam Clerk, please take the roll.
Parker.
Aye.
Stacy.
No.
Shadle.
Aye.
Sanders.
No.
Sellers.
Aye.
Clem.
Aye.
Monroe.
No.
Simmons? No.
We are tied at 4-4. Mayor, what say you?
Aye.
And the resolution is adopted 5 to 4.
Item number 19 is the adoption of Resolution 2024-79. Could you please read this?
Resolution approving agreement with the Freeport School District for the Police Department to provide a school resource officer.
Chief Schenberger?
Thank you. In the past, the Freeport Police Department has provided a school resource officer, or SRO, to the Freeport School District High School and Middle School. The last time the department had an SRO assigned to the school district was in early 2020. For the past 4 years, the department's been unable to staff the schools with a SRO because of a shortage of manpower. Since 2020, there have been ongoing talks with the Freeport, as well as Freeport School District administrative staff about providing a SRO for schools once the department was in a better staffed position. In the spring of 2024, the department posted an opening for SRO with the intent on having that officer be assigned to the Freeport School District in the fall of the 2024 fall semester. The Freeport School District and department staff selected an officer to be the SRO, and that officer has attended the training necessary to be a certified SRO in the state of Illinois. There have been untimely resignations since the selection process, which has again limited the department's ability to provide a full-time SRO. The department has planned to provide an SRO to the schools on a part-time basis this fall semester as manpower allows. The hope is that the SRO can then be assigned to the schools full-time in the spring 2025 semester. There are benefits to having an SRO in schools. Some of those benefits are the SRO provides expertise in dealing with youth involvement in crime and substance abuse. The SRO can participate in preventative programs to deter the use of alcohol and drugs. The SRO can help prevent crime within the school and the reduction of delinquency. The SRO will handle calls for service generated within the schools and lessen the impact on patrol officers having to respond to these calls for service. The SRO can assist with the development and practice of the school's emergency plans. An SRO can help bridge the gap of students' perception of law enforcement. There is no funding for this. The school district, other than the officer's salary, but the school district has agreed to reimburse the city of Freeport 50% of the SRO's wages and fringe benefits when he is able to work at the school. This is aligned with the strategic plan for safe and inclusive community.
Thank you. Is there a motion to adopt?
So move.
Motion made by Alderman Parker, seconded by Alderman Sellers. Discussion? Alderman Parker?
Over the past several years, the school resource officer has done a great job here, and as close as Dixon, they actually saved several lives, and because they were there at the time. I think this is a no-brainer, and it's a great idea.
Alderman
Would
Stacy?
this be for the high school or the junior high?
He will split his time between the high school and the middle school.
If there's no further discussion, Madam Clerk, please take the roll.
Parker.
Aye.
Stacy.
Aye.
Shadle.
Aye.
Sanders.
Aye.
Sellers.
Aye.
Clem.
Aye.
Monroe.
Aye.
And Simmons.
Aye.
The resolution is adopted 8-0.
Item number 20 is the adoption of Resolution 2024-80. Could you please read this?
Resolution ratifying emergency trio valve replacement at Roosevelt and Blackhawk by Fisher Excavating.
Thank you. Manager Boyer.
Thank you, Your Honor. The city of Freeport had multiple water street valve replacements scheduled for a corporate business office shut down at Morris Electric. This is part of the Locust Avenue project. On the morning of the replacement, the city had 2 other water main breaks that needed repair at that time. Fisher's crew was called in to assist the city staff as the water system was having a very hard time keeping up with the distribution water demand with the breaks. Fisher's crew was called in at 7:30 in the morning to complete the Roosevelt and Blackhawk trio water valve repairs. When the crews were finished with the installation, the city requested more assistance on repair the large water main break on Green Street that was found as our crews were still working on Brewster. The city will pay Fisher's $10,419 for the emergency repair, and that can come from the CIP budget. So staff is recommending that council ratify this payment to Fisher's in the amount of $10,419.
Is there a motion to adopt?
So move.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Second.
A motion made by Alderman Shadle, seconded by Alderman Sellers. Discussion? Madam Clerk, please take the roll.
Parker.
Aye.
Stacy.
Aye.
Shadle.
Aye.
Sanders.
Aye.
Sellers.
Aye.
Clem.
Aye.
Monroe.
Aye.
And Simmons. The resolution is adopted 8-0.
Item number 21 is the adoption of Resolution 2024-81. Could you please read this?
Resolution ratifying emergency fallen tree removal services at Avon and Cherry by Area Tree Service.
Thank you. Manager Boyer.
Thank you, Your Honor. Related back to the storm we discussed earlier, the city of Freeport had a parkweed tree that fell on a home during a recent large wind. I don't remember exactly how many trees we had, but I think it was something close to 20. This particular one fell on a house, and it was tangled in ComEd lines, and we were kind of in a hold waiting for ComEd to attend. Area Tree Service was called in to support the city to the address of the tree removal from the storm. The tree had fallen on the residential home and was entangled in power lines. The tree was over 85 feet and too large for city crew and equipment. The city will essentially, the cost of the emergency removal was $13,385.50 for the emergency tree removal. And a staff recommendation to move forward and pay the invoice for Area Tree Service.
Is there a motion to adopt?
So move.
Second.
A motion made by Alderman Shadle, seconded by Alderman Sellers. Discussion? Alderman Stacy?
This was a residence home?
Manager Boyer?
That's correct.
Okay, and why did it become our responsibility?
The tree was in the city right of way, so it's a city tree that fell on the resident's home. Part of it did. It basically blocked the intersection of Avon and near Walnut.
So point of clarification on that, it was a city tree or the resident?
Yes, it was a city tree.
If there's no further discussion, Madam Clerk, please take the roll.
Parker.
Aye.
Stacy.
Aye.
Shadle.
Aye.
Sanders.
Aye.
Sellers,
Aye.
Clem,
Aye.
Monroe, and Simmons. The resolution is adopted 8-0.
Item number 22 is adoption of Resolution 2024-82. Could you please read this?
Resolution approving a right-of-way use agreement with Surf Air Wireless LLC.
Thank you. Manager Boyer?
Thank you, Your Honor. Back to SURF, who are building out a fiber optic network to residents in the city of Freeport. SURF Internet is planning to build out the Freeport utility right-of-way for fiber duct and internet systems that will provide more competition in Freeport for lower cost, faster speeds internet. In order to build out the local system, the internet provider needs a right-of-way use agreement. The City Council has already approved the 3 city easement locations for the system's main cabinets installed in May 2024. Staff has been working on a letter of intent and agreement since this approval, and the total build-out is anticipated to take over 2 years. Surf Internet is requesting a right-of-way use agreement to install the fiber duct system in the city of Freeport's right-of-way. The city staff and attorney negotiated this agreement with Surf for an equitable resolution for the city and its constituents. Included is the agreement. There will be 25 fiber service internet connections to city-owned properties. Those are listed that will be installed during the build-out. These locations benefit the city by having high-speed fiber underground connections and should reduce overall costs of these services and provide redundancy for important utility assets. Surf Internet additionally provides program opportunities for low-income residents to have internet at reduced rates. There's no financial component, and staff's recommendation is to approve the Surf Internet right-of-way use agreement.
Is there a motion to adopt?
So move.
Second.
Motion made by Alderman Sellers, seconded by Alderman Shadle. Discussion? Madam Clerk, please take the roll.
Parker,
Aye.
Stacy,
Aye.
Shadle,
Aye.
Sanders, Sellers,
Aye.
Clem,
Aye.
Monroe,
Aye.
and Simmons.
Aye.
And that resolution is adopted 8-0.
Item number 23 is the adoption of Resolution 2024-83. Could you please read this?
Resolution approving agreement with Crawford Murphy and Tilly for construction phase services for Southwest Terminal Area Entrance Road Phase 2.
Thank you. Manager Boyer?
Thank you, Your Honor. Several years ago, the City of Freeport installed Phase 1 southwest road entrance off of Baileyville Road as part of the airport infrastructure improvements. Due to a shortage of grants and local funds to complete the road surface coating, a Phase 2 project was planned with the airport engineer, Crawford Murphy and Tilly, and IDOT to complete the roadway. IDOT aeronautics funding for the project requires the City of Freeport to have construction engineering inspection on this airport-specific project by the airport engineer. Crawford Murphy and Tilly is the current contract airport engineer, and CMT has presented an IDOT aeronautical standard proposal for $75,100 to complete the construction engineering process. Improvements will include hot mix overlay, widened entrance area, aggregate shoulders for drainage, roadway lighting, and require landscape restoration. Total estimated construction for the roadway improvements, and this is grand total, would be $409,000. And if you add in the agreement, it would bring it to about $550,000. So the city staff has budgeted for this planned improvements as part of the Freeport budget, and staff's recommendation is to approve this agreement.
Is there a motion to adopt?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion made by Alderman Shadle, seconded by Alderman Parker. Discussion. Alderman Stacy?
And the 409,000 will be coming from?
We got quite a bit coming from the FAA, so I think it's about 90%. Can you back me? Is that about right? Yeah. So
Wait, what did you-
90% is paid by the FAA.
Any further discussion? Alderman
Is that
Sellers?
not TIF money? FFA?
FAA.
FAA, Federal Airport.
Is that the Federal Aeronautics
Aviation.
Association, Aviation
Administration.
Yeah.
That's the wrong acronym, isn't it?
Thank you.
Darren?
It's essentially money that's divvied out through IDOT, and I think we kind of said that before. There's been a multi-phase plan for the airport. This was planned after phase one was done. It's a 90-10 grant, so we have to come up with $55,000 out of pocket, which I believe is coming out of the airport budget.
Alderman Sellers?
I just would like to make, is there a correction? Is it 490,000 or 409?
The construction value of the project is 409, and then there's engineering fees and inspection fees are the remaining balance.
Okay. So the total is 490 then? Is that
550.
550, okay.
Alderman Stacy?
So it is coming from the airport
Yes.
budget?
Yes, it is. This was a planned project that we had in the budget.
10%.
10%.
Any further discussion? Madam Clerk, please take the roll.
Parker,
Aye.
Stacy,
Aye.
Shadle,
Aye.
Sanders,
Aye.
Sellers,
Aye.
Clem,
Aye.
Monroe,
Aye.
and Simmons.
Absent.
I am sorry, I am not watching. The resolution is still adopted, 7-0.
Item number 24.
I know it's after the fact, but can I just ask a quick question?
Sure.
Will this be done before the air show?
I don't think so.
Okay.
Item number 24 is the adoption of Resolution 2024-84. Could you please read this?
Resolution ratifying emergency boiler repairs at City Water Plant on Brick Street by Nelson Carson Mechanical Contractors.
Manager Ware.
Thank you, Your Honor. The City of Freeport's water facility on Brick Street had several accruing leaks in the boiler, the hot water boiler system. It was brought to light by the state fire marshal, and he failed the boiler and required repairs. Originally, I think the boiler was put in 2015 or 2016, and due to various other support systems that were not installed at its when it was new, we had corrosion issues in the boiler, and that caused the individual elements to fail. We did receive 3 estimates, one from Leschers, one from Mechanical, and one from Nelson. Nelson and Carlson was the lowest, and they were the lowest ones that responded to a request, although there was 6 to 8 month lead times on the components, and we weren't entirely sure how long it would take to get it repaired, but we knew we had to get it done before winter, so we just wanted to ensure that this moved forward. So at this point, city's received an invoice for $21,203 for the emergency repair for the boiler at Brick Street.
Is there a motion to adopt?
So moved.
Second.
Motion made by Alderman Sellers, seconded by Alderman Shadle. Discussion? Alderman Stacy?
When was this put in? You said 2017?
Yeah, I believe 2015 or 2016.
15 or 16?
Yeah.
And all we can get is 8 years?
That's unfortunately the equipment. There was chemical addition and there was softening that apparently was never installed, and the boiler corroded from the inside out. And it's even worse because we're currently pursuing additional source water, and Brick Street's not going to be around very long, but we still need it to be functional for the foreseeable future for our makeup volume in case we have a fire.
Who
So
was responsible for putting that in?
it was Leschers that installed it at the time. However, who was in charge, I'm not sure. Who was making the decisions on that, I don't know.
And it didn't come with no warranty?
It came with a warranty, but without the, you need additional water stabilization and maybe essentially you need to stabilize the water chemistry so that it's not corrosive to the interior of the boiler, and that was never installed at the time.
Okay, so whose fault was that?
I'm not sure who was here. I would say there was, whoever was making those decisions in 2015, 2016.
Darren, were you here? No. Nobody know who was here?
Alderman Clem might have been on there. I don't know.
This is crazy. There's no paperwork?
What I can tell you is boilers are not maintained throughout the entire year, right? They're shut down for the summer months. The water's dumped on them, and then they're refilled in the fall months just before they turn them on. And our water is deep groundwater, so it requires chemical addition into these boiler systems to make them not as corrosive in the inside. And it appears that the sections didn't have that chemical additive, which is a service that you have to bring in and have your water studied to make sure that the chemical additive is correct.
So did we not know that?
I can't answer that question. It was up to our maintenance people.
That's crazy.
Now, I will tell you, so this repair here, this section, there's 3 sections that had multiple leaks. We also got a price on a replacement boiler. In comparison, it was over $100,000. So we're trying to limp this facility by for probably 2 to 3 years, and then it will be decommissioned.
Alderman Monroe?
I have to agree with Alderman Stacy. You know, I mean, many of the small schools around the area, they have their boilers for 30, 40 years. And the fact that the city can't seem to maintain their facilities and take care of the things, that's the same problem I've got with driving a fire engine or a ladder truck out to every ambulance call. Those types of things, it puts wear and tear, and you're not taking care of. We don't have enough money to replace this kind of stuff on a regular basis. So we've definitely got to ensure that we fix that problem moving forward.
Well, if there's no further discussion, Madam Clerk, please take the roll.
Parker,
Aye.
Stacy,
Abstain.
Shadle,
Aye.
Sanders,
Aye.
Sellers,
Aye.
Clem,
Aye.
Monroe,
Aye.
and Simmons.
Aye.
The resolution is adopted 7-0 with 1 abstention.
Item number 25 is adoption of Resolution 2024-87. Could you please read this?
Resolution to accept grant agreement with IDNR for flood mitigation up to $81,130.
Thank you, Director Duckman.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So the Illinois Department of Natural Resources entered into a grant agreement in 2019 with the city of Freeport, and it had a maximum funding amount of just shy of $765,000. And to date, the city has spent roughly $685,000 of that, most of which a notable project would have been the demolition of the Heine Plastics building on Freeport's east side. So I've been working with the Illinois Department of Natural Resources for a while now, and essentially worked with them to start a new grant agreement that would take the remaining almost a little more than $80,000, and to basically take that money that was allocated to us and start a new grant agreement. And what was the scope of work for the grant would essentially provide the purchase, asbestos remediation, demolition, and purchase assistance of a new property outside of the floodway for 907 East Stevenson Street. So that being said, staff is recommending approval of this resolution to enter into a grant agreement with the Department of Natural Resources.
Is there a motion to adopt?
So moved.
Second.
Motion made by Alderman Sellers, seconded by Alderman Shadle. Discussion? Seeing none, Madam Clerk, please take the roll.
Parker,
Aye.
Stacy,
That's no match.
Aye.
Shadle,
Aye.
Sanders,
Aye.
Sellers,
Aye.
Clem,
Aye.
Monroe,
Aye.
and Simmons. The resolution is adopted 8-0.
Reports from department heads. Finance.
Nothing this evening, Your Honor.
Thank you. Community Development.
Nothing tonight, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Public Works.
Sure. We've got Dirk and Coates paved last week by the city staff. Those projects just have a little bit of cleanup work and should be coming to an end. Some other great news we got last week. The collaboration between Fairgram and the city has paid off immensely with the new intended funding list from EPA. We have received towards well number 12 $7.3 million in 100% forgivable monies for emergent contaminants. We also received a loan for $6.7 million that another $5 million will be forgiven of. So that's $12.3 million.
Okay.
That will leave about $1.7 million remaining on that facility. Eric Sorensen gave us $959,000 towards that facility, so that leaves about $700,000 plus land app to build that new facility.
Okay.
So that's a huge win for Freeport. We also got a notice from Eric Sorensen that the $3.6 million that we applied for in water main was reduced to $1.6 million, but it was passed through Congress, so that means that will be our final amount for fiscal year '25. So that's another big win to go along with our road program. And finally, lead service line phase 4. Fairgrant was able to negotiate with the EPA, and we got the amount raised to $3,027,000 worth of forgivable on the next loan package. So we should be able to finish what we believe is all the lead service in town on the next package.
Nice job. Communication? Fire?
Yes, thank you, Your Honor. The fire department utilizes 3 VHF radio receiver sites. What those functions are, when we key up our radios, that signal passes through one of 3 receiver sites. And we've had several failures. It's old and outdated equipment. Replacement parts and repairs are very difficult to come by. So I requested Motorola to come out and do a study to see what it is that we have, what we need, and make suggestions to replace our radio network. So again, it's the receiver sites, it's not our individual radios. So Motorola came out and they reviewed all of our equipment. They suggested we add an additional 4th receiver site, and then they provided a quote for that work that came to $108,000. So no money was budgeted for that repairs and that work, but I did some research and looked into it and determined that that was an appropriate request from the ETSB board, the 911 board. It's where your 911 taxes go on every bill. Every month you have a bill. So I made that presentation on July 5th, and that afternoon they approved the request to fund that entire purchase for $108,000. No money coming from the city. It's all from 911 board.
Nice, thank you.
Great.
I guess we couldn't compete with Fairgrant, but
Yeah.
Chief, how does this work with your receivers when you leave the city of Freeport? I know you're getting a lot more calls to mutual aid, mutual assistance. Are there any issues going outside the Freeport city limits?
well, with this new equipment, it involves all new antennas, cabling, receivers, amplifiers, voting comparator, which takes the strongest signal and then sends it back to dispatch. So dispatch has enough wattage coming from their radios that we have good reception throughout the adjacent areas of the city limits. But our restriction would have been us transmitting back to the city limits. So with all this new equipment, it's going to enhance our capabilities, even going outside of city limits.
Thank you. Police?
Yeah, just a reminder, tomorrow, National Night Out from 5 p.m. to 7 p.m. We're teaming up with the fire department, Hillary Brocious from the fire department, Sergeant Brian Polich from the police department have planned this. Reed Park from 5 to 7 tomorrow night.
Thank you. Library?
We are finishing up our summer reading, and our end of summer party is on Thursday from 1 to 4 p.m. We'll have bounce houses, face painting, different activities. The splash pad will be open because we're at the Arts Plaza, and there might be a dunk tank as well.
Oh.
So if you're
Does that
interested,
mean you're in it?
maybe. So.
Thank you. City Manager?
Thank you, Your Honor. I just wanted to thank all the staff for their hard work. Every one of you are doing an outstanding job for the city, and I see it every day, and I want to thank you for that. Not only are the resources coming to the city, but also the professionalism I see displayed every day. I also want to thank all the senior employees that came this evening for their longevity awards, and I appreciate their contributions to the city over a very long time. It's an amazing achievement, so we thank them. That's all I've got, Mayor.
Thank you. And I just wanted to thank everyone that came to the anti-gun violence march on Saturday. I thought we had a good attendance, and it was just one event, and I'm sure there'll be many more to follow. And then also just to remind everyone that cruise night is on Saturday night. Starts at 4 until 8. The cruise starts at 6, runs down Stevenson Park, back down Empire and Locust State kind of area. So lots of cars, vendors, music, and food. So a great event to attend. Then we move on to Alderman Parker.
Nothing tonight, Your Honor.
Thank you. Alderman Stacy?
I just want to say that I was not able to attend the march. However, I did see it on the news. And my question is, and not that it can receive an answer tonight, but where do we go from here? Where do we go from here? Thank you.
Well, I can just give you just a little piece of that. William Brown, who is the one that's behind that, has a whole 40-day plan, and so it's a matter of what's the next piece of it. So he's kind of got that under his umbrella.
So when is that meeting?
Well, we haven't met since the March, so I'm not really sure. So William Brown is heading that up, so I don't know what he's going to propose at our next gathering.
Next meeting is Friday.
This Friday?
Alderman Shadle?
Nothing tonight.
Alderman Sanders?
Yeah. When I heard you mention cruise tonight, I was just wondering who's hosting.
That's
that
a Greater
event?
Freeport Partnership event.
That's who's hosting it?
It's one of their events.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Alderman Sellers?
Yes, I have a couple different things I would like to get some information on. I know the $300,000 grant that we got for dilapidated homes. I would just like to have maybe like an update on. I know that only thing that I've heard since the grant was those 3 first houses that we did. I was just wondering how many more houses are we going to get done before the end of the year with that grant?
It's going to be at least 5 more. I just purchased five or 6 homes, but I'll say 5 from the Stevenson County off the tax rolls, dilapidated houses. So those 6 will at least go forward with using those grant funds. So at least 6 more, and I anticipate that we'll be spending all of the $300,000.
Okay. And then the other issue was, I know there has been a lot of concern with Union School. Are we doing anything with that, or?
There's a couple things. We are just in the process of finalizing a contract with a contractor to clear out some of the excess weed growth, excess tall trees, et cetera. So we're entering a contract with them. City Manager Boyer and I are kind of finalizing the details there. So I anticipate that probably in the next few weeks to be cleared up. And there's going to be a bid opening to fence off the site for a 6-foot-high chain link fence to fence off the site. And that bid opening will be August 14th at 9 a.m. So we have the bid packet ready, available, and the notice will go in the paper August 8th. So those are the 2 items we're doing to secure the site.
And another question for you. With the ordinances that we have, I know that I've had some complaints on, I know we're doing this $10 million renovation on Adams Street, and right there's a house that these people got a bunch of chickens. And, do they, I know I called about it, and they were ticketed or whatever, but I'm saying, how long does it take for something like that? Or how do these people just feel that they can bring chickens into the community?
Well, let me say, there's a no chicken policy in Freeport, period.
Not even fried chicken?
Not a lot. Well, that's, depends on who makes it. If you're making it, then yes, it's allowed. No, but all seriousness, if the violation went out, I could certainly check on it with our front desk and see where the status is on it. But, if somebody gets cited for chickens, they're going to get an administrative hearing date, and then they'll get their chance to plead their case. And then ultimately, typically what happens is when somebody gets a violation like that, they usually get rid of the chickens or farm animals.
Oh, okay. And then just one more thing, I would just like everybody to know, also on Saturday night, the Boys and Girls Club is trying to keep the momentum going with the Stop the Violence, and they're having a movie night in their parking lot, and it's at 8 o'clock. So they're going to have 2 nice little movies and popcorn and other different things, just try to bring families out and just get together. So that's also at 8 o'clock on this Saturday.
Thank you. Alderman Clem?
Nothing, Carolina.
Thank you. Alderman Monroe?
Nothing tonight, Mayor.
Thank you. Alderman Simmons?
No, I don't have anything.
Thank you. Next is public comment. Lynette?
Can I shut this down? Sure. Yeah. Well, I was going to do this the night of the storm, but that was the night of the storm. On June 27th, my name's Lynette Williams. I'm a resident of Freeport. On June 27th, I received a call from Jody Miller. She knew I was a pretzel picker, and she had 9 areas of concern, and she wanted to beautify the city before Music on Chicago and Tutty Baker Days and Cruise Night. She and I talked briefly on the 28th, and we identified an area that I thought that we could handle. I gathered a few pretzel pickers and put a hand-delivered Saturday AM notice to the farmers market people, and I posted it on social media. On Monday, July 1st, from 8 to 10, we gathered and pulled weeds on Exchange Street next to what us older residents call the municipal lot. I had a crew of 10 volunteers. And again on Monday, from 5 to 7, we had another crew of 12. We pulled weeds on Van Buren. We finished both sides on Monday. We collected 10 30-gallon bags of yard waste from that city crew pickup and disposed of. And it ultimately covered this area in new mulch by the city workers. In addition, a smaller crew picked up garbage in the festival district and gathered 5 bags. There was still more to be done. Douglas Street from Walnut to State was pulled of weeds by smaller crews the remainder of the week. Tonight, I want to publicly acknowledge these individuals who stepped up and answered my call to action. From the pretzel pickers, Wendy Bettner, Sharon Cook, Kathy Perkins, Holly Edler, Ann Mason, Cindy Bielfeld, Stephanie Ball, and Polly Skanesny. From the farmers market, Linda Simler, Willie Tackett, Kate Fauci, and Danielle McKee. And from the public, Robin Dole and Veronica, who was a supervisor with the Norman Sleezer home. She brought 3 girls to help. Some did a single shift and some did a double, and I appreciate all of you who answered my call and am grateful for that help. On July 29th, 5 of us went back. Now you realize this is only 4 weeks later. Me, Ann Mason, Holly Edler, Linda Simler, Paula Skanesny, we picked an additional 3 bags. I'm handing back to you, the City Council, the responsibility of making a plan for this to continue each and every year. Rather than a reactive plan, let's do a proactive plan. As a citizen of Freeport, I would rather have the street crews filling potholes than pulling weeds. Covering the weeds each year with new mulch does not eliminate the issue. I've been given many ideas from those who did the work, and I respectfully ask for a proactive plan to be put into place. Thank you.
Thank you, Lynette. And it's actually on my to-do list. I just haven't gotten that far, so I will be calling you.
Thank you.
Any other public comments? Seeing none, without the executive session, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So move.
Second.
The motion made by Alderman Sellers, seconded by Alderman Shadle. All those in favor? Oh, no, we have to take a roll, don't we?
Oh, yes, we do. I wasn't ready for that. Thank you. Parker.
Aye.
Stacy. Aye. Shadle.
Aye.
Sanders.
Aye.
Sellers.
Aye.
Clem.
Aye.
Monroe.
Aye.
And Simmons. Motion passes unanimously.
Everybody, so that means everybody.
Nobody's listening to me.
Huh?
Oh,
Thank you.
oh, I'm with you. I don't. City.
Miss Stacy.
What day?
Okay. What day?
That one's not for.
All right.
Yeah. It's ready now. I'm ready. Anytime you want. Okay.
I'll stop.
Yeah.
If it's ready, if I know that it's ready, then I'll just.
One up there. I need more statements than I now think, just that I got one.
Thanks, Debbie.